Community Chronicles Radio, brought to you weekly by Gannon University's Erie Technology Incubator, in partnership with the Corey Higher Education Council. The Erie Technology Incubator, located at 900 State Street, works in the entrepreneurial ecosystem and provides technical assistance through the entrepreneurial process. This show features members of this ecosystem and the entrepreneurs in the Erie area. Welcome to Community Chronicles Radio. If you have a question for either Steph and I or the guests that are on today, give us a call at 814-679-1080, 814-679-1080. I am Dr. Matthew Plotz, and with me today, as always, is our freedom-loving co-host, Steph Screws. How are you, Steph?
Good, Matt. How are you? I
Kind
love
of,
that freedom-loving co-host.
yeah, with the 4th of July yesterday, I thought that was, it seemed right to throw in there. And I change it every
Exactly.
week. I don't know if you've noticed that.
Oh, yeah, I have noticed that. Yeah. I
So
love it.
today has kind of started out in one of those fashions that it's definitely a scheduled vacation day, and but we're here doing the live radio. I wanted to be here for this, but it's definitely been one of those days, and we've had the issues with tech. I couldn't find my car keys, so that was a little stressful.
No.
But we're here and we're ready for the show. I want to thank our sponsor again, Gannon University's Erie Technology Incubator. We were able to continue this show thanks to their support. Our first guest today is one of the people who drive the entrepreneurial ecosystem, and we talk about that ecosystem a lot. Her work at Penn State University's Launchbox and Innovation Network help entrepreneurs throughout the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I want to welcome to the show Annie Hughes.
Hello, good morning.
Morning, Annie. Good to have you with us.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's a real pleasure to be here. Thank you for making time. As mentioned, I'm the statewide coordinator of Invent Penn State's Launchbox and Innovation Network, and just really happy to talk about the network and some new innovation that we have for entrepreneurs in Pennsylvania.
Yes, very glad to have you with us. Could we start off by, could you tell us a little bit about what you do for PA's entrepreneurial ecosystem?
I sure can. So, Invent Penn State, for those who aren't familiar, encompasses a lot of activities for entrepreneurs and innovators around Pennsylvania. The portion of the services that I'm going to talk about today is that Launchbox and Innovation Network. And that's a network of, it's actually a total of 23 now. It was 21, but we have now 23 locations around Pennsylvania that provide free entrepreneurship programs and resources to any Pennsylvania entrepreneur. So you do not have to be affiliated with Penn State. You do not have to be a student, alumni, faculty, staff. You can be, but you don't have to be. If you're in Pennsylvania, we want to help you. And most of these locations around Pennsylvania are called launch boxes. Um, our network of locations, it just offer incredible access of resources to Pennsylvania entrepreneurs. In fact, 96% of all Pennsylvanians live within 30 miles of one of these launch boxes, and 75% live within 15 miles. We've been around since about 2015, and the network since then has assisted more than 7,000 entrepreneurs, has helped to create more than 400 new businesses and more than 500 new jobs. And we're actually in the process of collecting data for this last year, so that number is about to shoot up. But we're very proud of what we've done since 2015.
Yeah, I was looking at your website briefly last night. I mean, I had never heard of this. And of course, at first, when I look at it, I think, oh, do I need to be, part of Penn State? But then, of course, you just answered that and said, no, you don't even need to, which is really neat. So how does the Launchbox assist startup entrepreneurs? How do you go about
Yeah.
doing that?
Absolutely. So it's kind of like a service center, whether it's live in person, which there are many Launchbox locations, or helping entrepreneurs virtually. The Launchboxes generally offer a variety of services, startup training and accelerator programs, in particular, business workshops, product development assistance. We have a number of maker spaces across the network, and prototyping and fabrication resources. One thing we're really proud of and really want to shout from the hilltops is about our free legal support. So Penn State Law has, under our umbrella, offers two pro bono legal clinics for entrepreneurs. One is kind of a catch-all. It's called the Entrepreneurship Assistance Clinic, And it primarily helps entrepreneurs identify the right type of business entity for when they're starting their business and then walks them through the process. So they get some legal advice on the entity type. They get some auxiliary sort of documents that are required once you create your entity, and then they get support as they and help literally, filing their entity in Pennsylvania, and that offers it free. And again, you have to be you only have to be a resident of Pennsylvania. You don't have to be affiliated with Penn State law to get that help. The other clinic is an intellectual property clinic, and for anyone who's ever had intellectual property, you know how expensive and how painful and how time consuming it is protecting your intellectual property. So there's a clinic that helps with patents and trademarks, copyrights, and trade secrets. That's also available to any Pennsylvanian. Some of our Launchbox locations, like I mentioned, offer maker spaces and fabrication support, but also co-working. So it's a lot of stuff. In particular, when we entered the ecosystem, we noticed that early stage entrepreneurs probably may have needed a little bit more support, especially early stage entrepreneurs who had unclear business models. And so when Penn State entered the entrepreneurship ecosystem in Pennsylvania, we developed resources in particular to fill that gap. And so a lot of our accelerators are specifically for early stage entrepreneurs and really great for those who are unclear on what their business model should look like.
Okay, that's great. I mean, and all of this, like you said, is free, right? It's
Hmm. It
totally
is free.
free.
Hmm.
Wow. And what events are coming up for your organization?
Sure, there usually are too many to list. And I think, wherever you are in Pennsylvania, you can take advantage of resources anywhere in our network, anywhere in Pennsylvania. So whether it's in Erie or whether it's in, Brandywine or Harrisburg, it's perfectly fine to take advantage of whatever events are and resources are convenient to you and a good fit for what you need. And so we're always running accelerator programs, educational events in particular. State College is very busy with that type of activity, as is our Philadelphia area and our Pittsburgh area campuses. So the best thing to do is to go online at invent.psu.edu is our URL, invent.psu.edu. You can find your local launchbox, and then you can see what's going on there. But you can also see the rest of the launch boxes to find out what's happening. We do offer a few kind of network-wide events per year. One is our Venture and IP conference. That's the next one's actually in April 2025, so April 10th and 11th in 2025, and that's in State College. And our conferences showcase our tech startups, and it's actually the largest tech startup conference in the Mid-Atlantic region. So it highlights innovations from Pennsylvania, and the point is to also connect our innovators and entrepreneurs with potential investors. So that's one big objective of the conference is to help those entrepreneurs, be more visible, but also take that next step.
Now, are these conferences free as well, or do they have a cost or?
So this is outside of the launch box. You do,
Okay.
yes, there is a cost to the Venture and IP conference. And you can find out more about the Venture and IP conference, like if you're a startup who wants to participate, or if you're an investor, or if you want to just attend. You can find out more at invent.psu.edu.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a modest charge for that conference.
Okay. Can you tell us about the Navigator resource also that's on your webpage?
Definitely, definitely. We have actually a couple of navigators that might be of interest to your listeners. There's a resource navigator, and that's kind of like it sounds. If you're looking for resources around Pennsylvania and you're a startup, or you're a soon-to-be startup or an entrepreneur, that's a good resource to take a look at. There's an intellectual property navigator, and that's highlighting intellectual property from Pennsylvania. In particular, there's a lot of it's from Penn State, but it's available for licensing. So folks are looking for innovation to license or to partner with. That there's a navigator for that. And lastly, there's a startup navigator too, and that's a searchable database of Penn State companies and ecosystems startups. So if you're looking for a company, that's a good resource to take a look at. So there, yeah, three navigators, and once again on the website invent.psu.edu.
There's so many resources. That's really
It's too
awesome.
many.
No,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's really too many. Yeah.
Well,
Keep track of them.
so What do listeners need to know about the Customer Discovery 101 program?
Okay, yes, thank you for asking. This is the reason why I really wanted to join today because we're very excited. We just launched a new tool for Pennsylvania entrepreneurs. It is free and it is as easy as possible to access and use. So we're really excited about this. We basically took what we knew from years and years of experience about what helps entrepreneurs get started, and work out their business model, work out who their customer is, learn more about their customer, so they can de-risk their venture. That's the whole point of it. So we took what we knew from our accelerator teaching experience and we put it into an asynchronous version, which basically just means it's in demand. It's you just access it as you wish. It's online, and it is called Customer Discovery 101. Customer discovery, basically, those words refer to the very first step that an entrepreneur really ought to take to test their assumptions so they can bring down the risk level as they get started with their business. And it's very important. It's a very important step. So we do a lot of that kind of instruction, but we put it into a website so that anybody can access it. They don't need to log in. They don't have to pay. They don't have to do anything. They just have to access the website. The website is customerdiscovery101.launchbox.psu.edu. I know that's very long, but that's the website, customerdiscovery101.launchbox.psu.edu. And if you get to the Invent Penn State website, you'll
Right.
find a link to it. Yeah,
If
that
you
might
put
be
that in Google, it'll get you there eventually.
yeah, it'll get you there. Yes. But what it is, we created this Customer Discovery 101 tool to provide Pennsylvania entrepreneurs and business owners with that free accessible help. We wanted to extend our reach. So we wanted to, create a lower barrier to entry way of, getting this information, learning how to use it for the benefit of entrepreneurs. And the program actually was specifically developed for rural Pennsylvanians, the type, the folks who we have a little bit more difficulty reaching and just know, they might not know we exist. And so putting this on online was the intention there. We do understand too, some rural Pennsylvanians don't have broadband. So this is accessible and usable via a mobile phone as well, or a mobile device. So that's a possibility too. But in a nutshell, it's a free online self-paced startup training program for entrepreneurs or small business owners in Pennsylvania.
I like the
That's a
idea.
lot of.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. I kind of.
Oh, go ahead, Matt.
I like the idea that it's self-paced for the people that are coming into the entrepreneurial space. A lot of times they still have their day job. They haven't quite let go of that yet. And having the self-paced makes this a little bit more palatable, I think.
Absolutely. I mean, that's really one barrier to someone maybe participating in an accelerator program that we offer is, can they make the time? Are they close enough to attend? Do they have the broadband access? So we were looking for more kind of air, land, and sea ways to reach entrepreneurs with our resources. So and entrepreneurship can be intimidating to some. So we wanted to lower that barrier too. Like you can come on the website and check it out. The cool thing is too, if you go on the website, you check out the program and you prefer that, it's quite a rigorous program. So if you prefer to work with someone else, in a cohort, traditional accelerator model, you can say, you know what, I want to be part of a class doing this. You can access us and we can direct you to the next one. One thing I want to mention about this tool is it does, prompt you 7 times to work with a coach. And because working with someone is really important, for sticking with the process, but also talking about what you've learned and how to apply it in the process. And for folks who have a business coach, or a startup coach, they can use their existing one. For folks who don't, we can help match you with somebody. We can help you find people. So there's a way in the site to reach out to us if you're looking for a coach, and we'll just ask kind of generally where you are so that we can point you to the 3 nearest resources for people we know can coach, and that might be SBDC consultants, that might be Invent Penn State people, that might be SCORE consultants, so or something else, anywhere in our ecosystem, so that support is available as well.
Do you find that there are certain types of coaches that work well with different types of business? Say you have a tech business. Do you try to match up the consultant with that particular idea?
Yeah, we try to. there are, yeah, I mean, with the technical knowledge, especially for very technical businesses, having somebody with a little bit of experience, either in building a product, maintaining a product, or commercializing a product, can be really helpful. With the customer discovery, the nice thing is at this stage, it's kind of a blanket process. Like any type of business goes basically through the same steps. Because it's really more about strategy, setting your strategy, discovering your strategy for a strong business model. We all know, I mean, you guys, I'm sure, know as much as anybody that no matter how good your product is, if people can't use it, if people don't understand what it is, if people can't access it, or if you're targeting the wrong customer, it's going to fail. I mean, and businesses have a high rate of failure. So this is really what this customer discovery process is about, is how do we de-risk, how do we help people de-risk their business models and set a better strategy so that there's a lower risk of I'll say failure in quotes, because failure is not a bad thing in entrepreneurship. It's a learning point. It's a turning
Right.
point oftentimes. Yeah. So it's a good thing in many ways. But how do we de-risk in terms of like your investment? You know, before you put the credit card down and order a million widgets, you know, how can you pressure test some of your assumptions?
And that's what we like about this show is we bring people on who have gone through the process a little bit here or there, and they found their sticking points and the things that have been difficult as they've gone along, and to try to just talk about those things so people that have an idea feel comfortable getting started. So we're happy to have those types of conversations.
Fantastic. Yeah. There's nothing like community. I mean, I think we've learned that entrepreneurs need other entrepreneurs who've been there and to talk about their war stories. Absolutely, so important.
Yeah, there's so much you say de-risk, but there is that inherent risk. Like when you're starting a new business or something there, you know, we are so trained to have our full-time job and what we've always done, and that means of like steady income. And there's the rolling of the dice, no matter how much you de-risk, that you have to kind of weigh in your head, am I going to do this, and is this going to happen? And it's nice to have that group of people who work with you and kind of give you the ideas of how that could go.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if every entrepreneur who gets started understands the degree of risk. Yeah, and that
What
makes
do
us
you think, Ashley?
Absolutely not.
So there's
Yeah.
that. Yeah, you know, there's times when things seem like, okay, this wasn't a great idea, and I know our next guest Ashley can
Yeah.
probably attest to that. But you know, it's just great to hear. So we spend a lot of time talking about the for-profit space. Steph and I work for a nonprofit. I've been working for nonprofits for a while. As I was scrolling through the site, I found the Summer Founders Program. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we're really proud of our Summer Founders program. It offers students, Penn State students, the opportunity to, in lieu of like a summer internship, to go to State College, get some funding, and to spend basically get paid to work on their startup idea throughout the summer with a lot of support from our Happy Valley Launchbox team, which they're exceptional. And so, yeah, basically, it gives young entrepreneurs a chance to really focus on building and with knowledge and support, and then a little bit of funding to support them throughout that summer as they work on it.
It's just such a different approach to everything. A lot of people coming into the entrepreneurial space, they're hoping to sell a product and make money and go from there. I personally have this idea for a nonprofit idea, but I've been sitting on it for a long time, just working in the nonprofit space. For that, the nonprofit, for me, it even feels scarier, because why are you doing this? Not to make a profit, just to make the world better. And this looks like a very cool program.
Oh yeah, thank you. And you know, we do work with nonprofits too. So these startup processes, including customer discovery, you know, it doesn't have to be a venture. It's like anytime you're building a model where you're basically expecting some kind of behavior change from a group of people. You want them to do something, whether it's to give you, you know, to pay you for a product, or whether it's to engage with your organization, or whether it's to donate. I think these processes work. You know, the lean startup process that we teach in our accelerators, it's not that different from design thinking. It's the same sort of fundamentals, which is that's a problem solving framework, right? So it's anytime you're dealing with humans, whether it's a nonprofit or a venture or a problem solving, these same processes work beautifully. And so part of our mission is just to equip both the next generation of innovators and current Pennsylvanians with these processes, so they feel confident and they know what to do when they have a great idea.
That's great.
That's a great program. I mean, there's a lot of information to take in on the website too. I mean, stuff that, like I said, I keep learning more and more the more I go with this show. Like, I didn't know all this stuff existed, and that, you didn't have to have like the degree or you didn't have to be part of this. I mean, it's really neat. It's like stuff you wish you would have known earlier when you were younger. Or, I mean, you don't have to be young. I mean, you can use it now. I mean, I shouldn't say it like that, but and
Mhm.
then, so speaking of all the information, once again, how can people locate you and your services again if they want to make use of all this the services? I'm trying to say it
Absolutely.
right.
Well, thank you again. Well, if there's one thing to remember and to get your pen and paper out to jot down, it's how to contact us. So you can find our main website for Invent Penn State at invent.psu, like Penn State University, .edu. That's our main site. And then the Customer Discovery 101 tool that I talked about, that self-paced program, and this was a long one, but again, you can access it through our main site as well. But that URL is Customer Discovery 101, and you're going to put the digits in 101. So Customer Discovery 101.launchbox.psu.edu. Or you can try Googling it and you'll probably get there. So, but yeah, and then my name is Annie Hughes. I'm also, if you Google my name in Penn State, you'll probably find my email. So, customer discovery at psu.edu is another email address that you can use to reach us if you have any questions.
Okay.
So
Thank
yeah,
you
if you're
very
looking for
much.
that Customer Discovery 101, if you just navigate to the main page, it's under the Tools section in the main menu there. You drop down and see it. So if you didn't get that when you were writing down the web address, that's where you can find it. So we understand the power of media and getting a voice out there and everything. I see on your website that you have a to Disrupt podcast. Can you talk a little bit about that? We have a few minutes.
Yes. Yes, the to Disrupt podcast really highlights the stories. You were talking about storytelling, with your own show. We invite entrepreneurs onto that show to tell their story from, beginning to end. We find that this is one element of growing entrepreneurship activity in Pennsylvania is inspiring people, inspiring them to get started or inspiring them to keep going. And so that's why we highlight these stories of these great entrepreneurs in the podcast. So yeah, please do find it wherever you listen to podcasts and listen. Some of the entrepreneurs are affiliated with Penn State. Some aren't, and some do social ventures. Gary Gillum was on there not too long ago. He's a former NFL football player with a social venture he's working on. And then many are tech entrepreneurs, and it runs the gamut.
That's great. We do like to get the media out there. We understand the power of it. That's part of why we've gotten the show and had the opportunity to speak to guests like Annie and Ashley today. We hope you stick around. We do have Ashley Sanger from Language Collaborations coming up after the news break.
Thank you. I'm very excited to talk all about language collaborations.
Yeah, I am too. We met at my previous job, the Multicultural Community Resource Center, and your idea and what you do has so much power and like I think that there's a real care behind it, and that's the kind of stories that we like to have on here.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, we'll get you right after the news. You are listening to Community Chronicles Radio on 103.3 FM, 105.9 FM, and 1530 AM. And as always, through the Corey Higher Education Council Facebook page or talkerie.com, they have that listen live button, brand new listen live button, right, Joel? Yeah, I click that every day. When I'm sitting at my desk, I pay attention at 3 o'clock and click that listen live. We'll see you after the news. Welcome back to Community Chronicles Radio, brought to you weekly by Gannon University's Erie Technology Incubator in partnership with the Corey Higher Education Council. The Erie Technology Incubator, located at 900 State Street, works in the entrepreneurial ecosystem and provides technical assistance through the entrepreneurial process. This show features members of this ecosystem and the entrepreneurs in the Erie area. We appreciate our first guest, Annie Hughes, for coming and talking to us a little bit about the services Penn State has for the entrepreneurs in the ecosystem. Our next guest has a great story to tell, and we are happy to have her on. Ashley is the founder and owner of Language Collaborations, LLC. I had the distinct honor and opportunity to meet Ashley when I was at the Multicultural Community Resource Center. Her service is a much needed resource for many types of industries. Welcome to the show, Ashley.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. Yes, Language Collaborations began in 2018. During that time, what I wanted to do was actually start teaching English as a second language in companies. I previously taught people how to speak English in the university setting. And then I kind of just had an idea one day that I could take that into actual businesses and work with them, be able to teach their employees. Since then, it has expanded that I now work in community centers as well as I do translation services. So I have 3 different services that I've been running. So it has expanded in the last 6 years, and I hope to continue doing that as the need continues to grow. So there's lots of need in the community. We have a lot of refugees that are resettling in Erie. Erie's a welcoming city. And so we have lots and lots of new families that are coming. They're primarily from Afghanistan, they're from Ukraine, and they're also from Syria, among many other groups in Erie. And so all of them need to be employed. All of them know that it's very important to learn English so they can make money for their families, so they can acclimate to their life in the United States. So a barrier, though, for them is actually attending English classes at these community centers, because there can be issues with transportation. There can be issues with the timing. Many of them work first shift. Lots of classes are held during first shift. Some of them work second shift. And so what ends up happening is that they're not able to get to the community classes. So something that I thought that would be good for not only the businesses, but for the employees is to actually have English class during their workday. The way that it benefits the employers is that everything is custom in Language Collaboration. So what I tell them is to give me 3 to 4 pain points they have for about a 3-month course, and they tell me exactly what they want their employees to learn. So obviously that's typically about safety, what PPE that they need to wear, if they need to read blueprints, if they're working in housekeeping, where do they throw away different products and things like that. And so everything is custom to the needs of the business. But on top of that, then their employees are also learning English. They're gaining value. They're learning how to work their job more safely and efficiently.
And I think I'll jump in here. One of the common misconceptions about refugees and asylum seekers that are here in Erie is that they're not working legally. They're finding employment that isn't legal. But the refugees that come here are working on the board and paying taxes and all of those types of things. But what we had found is yes, and they are expected to go and get a job.
Yes.
So that's part of it. They do get some funding to get started and get their feet underneath them. But the expectation is over time that they are in the employment and workforce. And as we're looking at the silver tsunami and the things that are coming, refugee workers are going to be very important to making everything work in our city and a lot of others.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. They're very valuable to our community. They're hard workers. They want to work. They want to provide for their family. Many of them talk about that they lived in these beautiful homes in their country. They had a wonderful life. And obviously there was some unrest that caused them to be here. And so they want to, once again, have a beautiful home. home. They want to provide for their family. Many of them have several children, and so they need to work hard to provide them resources in Erie.
And we did find what you found is that there are certain workers that they just could not make it during the scheduled ESL courses. There's any number of things that prevent them. And we think of, everyone that works and has been an American, fortunate enough to be born here. A lot of us, we just drive our car, we go here. Transportation can be such an issue.
Yes.
In the wintertime especially. A lot of them ride bikes. They can get to the community centers, but in the wintertime, it's much more difficult. So with the expectation of having a job and being in that place, you're going right to where they are.
Yes. Like you said, transportation is a big issue. And then many of the families only have one car. So once they get home, they need to tend to their children, tend to their spouse. And so they just may not have the time. An issue that came up, I had one company that hired us specifically to teach their employees driving courses because they had purchased a van because they really enjoyed having these employees and they worked very hard, but none of them had a driver's license. And so they didn't want to keep buying more and more vans. And so they hired us. We came in and taught a driving course. So we were teaching them the vocabulary, the commands, to be able to actually pass the driving portion of it, because you can take the permit test in your first language, but the driving portion you cannot. So you have to be able to understand the instructor in English and the commands that they're giving, and many of them cannot do that. And so they came in and all of them passed their driving tests, and so now they all have their license, and now we're running it a second time. So it's been very successful.
And it's very strange when you have a refugee that's here, and I worked with one particularly, and he just expected that he would be able to just get his driver's license. I was in the Afghan military. I drove Jeeps, much bigger trucks. I know what I'm doing.
Yes.
And we were trying to explain, well, that there is the law, and you have to take this test without. You can't have a translator there. You have to be able to speak with and understand the instructor.
Yes.
So that's so important.
Yes. I think that I've heard that story more than once, that I should be able to drive here because I was able to work for the military and drive. And I mean, that's a whole nother thing, is getting your CDL as well. So I haven't had to conquer that yet, but I imagine in the future that will come up as well.
He told me I drive big trucks. I'm like, okay, over there, but not here. So. Yes. So we have a lot of different obstacles that maybe other people haven't thought of before that come up in the community, and I learn every week about a new barrier that I would like to figure out how to overcome for them too. I'm sorry, I keep jumping on you, Steph. You have the.
That's all right. I'm enjoying listening to you guys talk because, like I said, you've worked there and you've worked with Ashley and know more about it. So I find it very interesting. I was just wondering, do you find that most of the refugees, do they have basic understanding of English, or do some of them need a little bit? Do you help them with the English language then, or what other things? As English being the second language, do you find as barriers? Like, do you have to teach them more of the language, or how does that work? I don't know if I phrased that right.
Oh, no, that's okay. So there's several different factors. So some of them, depending on what country they came from, they may have had English at school, possibly. Someone had told me that they had to relearn English because our accent was so different than the accent that they learned in their country. So that can be a barrier. So the biggest obstacle is those that cannot read in their first language. So that they did not learn English in their country at all. So they have no concept of English, but then they also do not have any concept of reading. So that is very challenging, especially when you're going into a company and they want them to be able to read work instructions or be able to read different signage in there. And they're not able to do that in their first language. So you can't translate it for them, let alone be able to expect them immediately to learn it in English. So when I'm going into these companies, That's one of the first things that I have to determine is whether they can actually read in their first language. And it's a lot more common than what you think that they cannot read in their first language. So yeah, and then I have to take, that much more time to actually teach them what reading is all about. And then them learning a new alphabet so there's lots of different factors that go into it. It's not really a linear thing that we just go in sometimes and just teach English and that's the end and everybody catches on really fast.
It all depends on the situation, because I'm sure every situation is different and every person is different. So
yes.
What made you think of this company for this solution? What made you want to come up with this?
Well, prior to starting this company, I had worked in higher education. I had taught English as a second language, but it was to a completely different population. I was working primarily with students from Saudi Arabia that were here for a program that they were coming to the United States and they were learning English in the university. They had several different choices of majors that they would complete and then they would go back to Saudi Arabia. So I worked at a university in Pittsburgh, a university in Erie. And that program eventually ended and I wanted to start doing something else. And so I will say I do not suggest this for any entrepreneur, but I kind of just made it up one day and I did no research. And so I just hoped that people would buy it off of me. Now, since then, I've taken classes, I've taken different business courses, tried to figure out what I'm doing because my background is teaching. I was always going to be a teacher. I would never plan on owning a business ever. But yeah, I really just kind of like made it up one day and then just hoped that it would work. And so I've just kind of forced it to work. But it's not been easy, as we discussed before. Definitely not an easy thing to do.
So what languages, I'm just curious, what languages are you fluent in as far as like for translating or?
So everybody asks me that and it's the worst answer. So I'm not fluent in anything else other than English. So my translation services are done by other individuals.
Okay.
So yeah, so English class, like the way that English classes are is that I'm only speaking English to them the entire time. So I'm not translating anything for them.
Okay.
I know conversational Spanish, but I do not know technical terminology in Spanish at these companies. But it makes it better because then they don't rely on me to translate everything. Yeah. So it's actually much more helpful. Surprisingly, Spanish is not the most common language that I have with my students. It's actually Arabic. And I think I know about 30 words in Arabic, which I'm very proud of. That's been difficult enough. So no, the whole class is just done in English. I wish I had a better answer because everybody asks me that question.
It's common. I worked at MCRC.
I'm like fascinated with languages. Like I took Spanish in high school, and then they offered Russian actually in high school, and I got to take some Russian and learn the Cyrillic alphabet, and then I actually took Bulgarian in a class in college, and then I always thought, if I went back, I would, do something with languages, but I just dabbled in it, and then actually last summer I got to meet some Ukrainians who were here, and they were just amazed. They're like, "Oh my gosh, you know Russian,"
Yeah.
So I got to practice on them, so that made me excited.
That would have been helpful for me also to learn Russian. No, but I never even had the opportunity. So
it's a difficult language just simply because you have to learn an entirely new alphabet.
And that's how Arabic is too. That I'm like, I actually can't read it to like phonetically like know how to pronounce the words. And so that's it's all of it is challenging.
So can you tell us about one of your biggest success stories that you've had?
I think on like for social media, posting about that is a big success is when I have employees that are promoted. I think that is a big success for me. On a smaller scale is teaching them to read, which I already talked about how difficult that is. But for employers, getting their employees promoted within the company is always the goal. So we have a lot of refugees that are coming here that are highly skilled in certain areas. And when they are going into work, English may be one of the reasons that they cannot communicate, that they already know how to weld, or they have, experience with pouring cement and being able to read blueprints and all of these different things. And so one of the goals for my company is to break down that barrier, that they're able to communicate and being able to use skills that they maybe have had for 20 years, and they can be a great asset to that company. So a couple of the places I work at right now, we're doing courses for their employees to be promoted, that they've done so well. So yeah, it's gotten even more specific with the courses that are happening. So at a plastic company, I have two gentlemen that are going through a mold setup, so that now they actually have to learn very technical words. They have to interact with a lot of different managers, which is very difficult with an accent, or how fast somebody speaks to them, or what kind of slang that they're using. And it's also difficult for the managers because they've never had this before, and now they have to be a lot more intentional about how they speak to someone. So it's all a learning curve, but I think that has been a really, really great success for my company, is to see employees that are getting promoted. They're making more money for their family. They're now able to independently read different paperwork that they may not have been able to read before, sit in meetings that they've never been able to read before. Or been able to send in before. But on a much smaller scale, teaching them to read is such a big thing. I had a gentleman that he was just so excited that now he can go to the store and read labels, because he's lived in the United States for 10 years and he never was able to read anything. And so now he is able to do that, and that's a great success for me.
I think that portion of the employees getting promoted is just super impressive. That is really great, actually.
Yes.
And because so many times refugees get hired as like a general laborer, and those jobs are very much needed in some of these shops. But we hear at the Corey Hyatt all the time, I need somebody that can read blueprints. I need somebody that can step up and do some of these higher level jobs. And for you to be in the spaces and helping the refugees get to that spot, that's super impressive.
Yes, I'm very excited for them. But it is, as an instructor too, it's very exciting for myself and the other instructors also to know that they, feel a lot more valued at their job. They can use a lot more of the skills that they maybe had before. So it's a win-win for everyone.
So you mentioned the instructors that you have. So the one question we have is kind of, it was a yes or no, you answered it, but how is it as an entrepreneur where you get to the point that your business is doing well enough and you have enough clients in the manufacturing and business space that you have to hire someone to come on and be part of your process, and you have quality control there, what you have perceived as this business and all of that? What is that like?
Yes, I think that was terrifying. I think that's that was terrifying, most terrifying part of my business, because I had done it by myself for 5 years, and then I got to the point that I was teaching so many classes and I found my breaking point, which I think every entrepreneur does. And so you stretch yourself so far, and then once you get to that point, I think you need to have a real conversation of, do I want to expand my business, or am I fine keeping it the way that it is? And I'm glad that I went through that experience by myself for 5 years instead of hurrying up to jump to have somebody work for me. And so I did all of the hard work, and I know what it takes, and it was a lot more clear to hire somebody and what expectations I had for them when I actually got to the point of hiring. So I hired my first employee maybe August of last year. I now have 3 employees. And so I think it was really just stretching myself to see what my limit was. It was very scary because, like you said, quality control. Nobody's ever going to care about your business as much as you do. Right. So, this is my 3rd child to me. And so it is, it is kind of nerve-wracking to give somebody that trust and, in your reputation on top of that. But it's been a really great experience. Everyone that works for me is much more educated than I am. They're all fluent in a second language. They actually translators that I have. I have two of them that are fluent in Arabic and one of them that's fluent in Spanish.
Wow.
And so, yes. And one of my instructors, she owned an English language school in a different country. Two of my instructors have PhDs, so they're much more actually qualified than I am to teach any of these classes. So, which is a great thing to do as an entrepreneur, is have somebody that's even more qualified work for you.
But that's the beauty of the intellectual property, the thing that you have and your idea. Even though that happens sometimes.
Yes.
I was the refugee social service director at MCRC, and the same thing for me. I didn't speak any other languages. I was trying to. I had Duolingo, and I was working towards learning some languages, but all of my caseworkers were, they knew multi languages, many of them several.
Yes.
And I think, our education system here in the United States does not do us any favors.
No, not at all. I don't think that we do any favors about teaching other languages or learning about other countries. So, there are a lot of misconceptions,
Yes.
about many different aspects of the entire world. So I think that there needs to be a lot more education. I think that I can see how it is changing for the good, though. My son, in his first grade class, there were, I will believe, 8 children that are learning how to speak English from different countries. And so he's learning about, how somebody, just because they are learning another language, like that's a really great thing for them, or learning about different religions. So I think especially for Erie is getting a lot more diverse. And so I think the generation coming up is going to be a lot more, educated about
And
the world.
understanding,
And understanding, even more important, understanding.
I always tell this joke, is a mistake that you make when you have assumptions about the American culture and other cultures in general. When I got to MCRC, one of the first things I did is I wanted to create a safe space for refugees to come in and feel comfortable. So I ordered a small refrigerator, and I set it up in the waiting room. And my boss, when it showed up, he said, "Why did you need that?" And I said, well, I wanted to get some stuff for the refugees that come in. A lot of times they're walking here. It's hot in the summertime. I wanted to get water and put it in there so that they could just have it. And he said, do you know what assumption that you've made that's incorrect? The American culture is one of very few cultures that likes their water ice cold. Most cultures want it room temperature, warm. That's perfectly fine. So at the end of all of that, when I put the water in the refrigerator, I said, we'll see. Well, I put the water in the refrigerator. Nobody took it. So I started putting it on top of the refrigerator, and then it started to disappear. So I got like a $300 shelf and he let me make that mistake, and we moved on. But yes, there is so much more than just the language there. It's a lot of the cultures, the way the differences and the way they approach everything. You mentioned not being able to read. A lot of especially in the Afghan culture, a lot of the female population that comes here, they were never taught anything. So it's starting almost from scratch.
Yes. We actually, so I work very closely with the Afghanistan Community Center. And so we do have courses. They're split specifically for the women, specifically for the men, and teaching them how to speak English. Many of them have, and not only the women, there have been several men that I've interacted with that just had never been to school before. So they helped their family on a farm or whatever that was. And then they eventually worked for the military. So one of the programs that's coming up is that they just received a very large grant to help with digital literacy, because
I saw it,
yes, which is very exciting. So many of them had never turned on a computer before. And then not only turning on a computer, once you actually turn on your computer, you have to read how to navigate a website. So this grant program is going to teach them, it's primarily focused on them job searching. So my part obviously is the vocabulary aspect of it, but there's so much. I mean, once you get to a job search screen, you still have to be able to read what it says.
Absolutely.
So.
And I'm writing a grant now about getting employment and how people do that. And if there's so many blocks to that. We're talking about broadband access in the rural areas. Annie spoke a little bit about that. The internet speeds in Corey, where we work, are not the best all of the time. And so that can be a real impediment to getting a good job. There, a lot of the jobs out there now are all online. That's where you go find your job.
Yes.
So that digital literacy piece is so important.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine starting that far back, even turning the computer on, pushing the button.
Yes, it really is starting as far back, and even just sitting in an English class, it's really as far back as you can think, is like learning to say hello, how are you. So it really I can teach the true basics, and then it can go up until infinity till they're fluent English speakers.
So if there were somebody out there that owned a business, operating a business, maybe works in HR, a machine factory, something like that, with the silver tsunami, that when the boomers go away from the workforce, there's going to be such a need for people. How can these businesses find you if they're interested in hiring refugees and having ESL right there in their shop?
So you can always visit my website. My website is languagecollaborations.com. My email is ashley@lcerie.com. I'm also on LinkedIn, so you can go to Language Collaborations on LinkedIn, or you can find me personally. It's Ashley, and then the last name is Sanger. So yes, any of those ways that you can contact me.
Well, thank you, Ashley.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate you coming on. You can tell this is something I'm passionate about. I was so glad to be able to bring you on and talk a little bit about what you're doing.
Yeah.
Anything else big coming down? Any new ideas?
So I'm expanding to Pittsburgh, which I'm very excited about.
Wow.
So yes. So I'm trying to figure out the Pittsburgh business landscape. So I'm originally from Butler. I lived in Pittsburgh for a while, and so I understand how to navigate Pittsburgh, but not in the business arena. So, and that is, of course, a lot more difficult than navigating somewhere that you're living at.
Right.
So I have been, working a lot and trying to meet different people, doing different presentations in Pittsburgh, and meeting a lot of new people.
That's great. Holy cow, that's going to be something else.
Yeah. Thank you.
I always thought you were kind of on the way. So we have to wrap up. I appreciate you coming on. We're not going to get to what we're doing in the Corey High Ed, Steph.
That's okay. Yep, we're running out of time.
But I do have the dad joke of the day. And this one we based because yesterday was Independence Day, our 4th of July. Steph and Ashley, what did the colonists wear to the Boston Tea Party?
Oh, I don't know.
T-shirts.
Oh.
I want to thank both of our guests, Annie Hughes, Ashley Sanger, for coming on. I know next week, I don't think we have anything scheduled yet. I'll have to hustle, right, Steph? We'll figure it out.
Yeah, you got to get going on that.
But we will be here live next week. We hope to see you then.